What the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Sounds absurd, doesn't it, to say that a simple idea in one's mind can transform an entire life? But what is more absurd? Believing you can change, or spending another 10 years complaining about the same problems, hoping that something will change on its own. Today, I want to show you why a small internal shift is the trigger that can revolutionize everything in your life. Have you ever stopped to think about how many things you tolerate every day without realizing that these small concessions are exactly what shape your life? The salary that hasn't increased in years, but you keep accepting it because it's stable. The relationship that drains you, but which you maintain because it's better than being alone. The tired body, the delayed sleep, the repetitive routine, and still you tell yourself, it's okay, I can hold on a little longer. This is how the extraordinary is lost, not through grand tragedies, but through small daily accommodations. The truth is, life never gives you what you wish for. It precisely returns what you choose to endure. This is one of the hardest and most liberating discoveries someone can make. Because when you understand that you are an accomplice to what holds you captive, you also discover that you can free yourself. Every time you tolerate something that weakens you, a negative thought, an excuse, a habit that holds you back, you are training your brain to accept mediocrity as normalcy. And the brain is an efficient machine. It repeats what is familiar, not what is best. This is why Napoleon Hill said that man becomes the reflection of his predominant thoughts. But he forgot to mention that these thoughts are built by small acts you repeat in silence every day. Think about it. If someone followed you for 1 week, what would they see? A creator of their own destiny, or someone automatically reacting to circumstances? This is the question that separates dreamers from achievers. Because destiny isn't revealed in grand decisions. It shows itself in the small ones, in the time you wake up, in what you do when you're alone, in how much you respect yourself when no one is looking. Every time you wake up late and say, just for today, every time you accept the minimum and call it realism, you are reinforcing to your mind that you deserve less, and it believes you. Researchers at Duke University discovered that more than 40% of daily actions are automatic habits, not conscious decisions. This means that almost half of your life is lived on autopilot mode, and worse, programmed by patterns you chose to maintain without realizing it. This is why change seems so difficult. It's not the world resisting, it's the brain defending the familiar. But there's a powerful detail here. If habits are learned, they can also be reprogrammed. It all begins when you decide to raise the standard of what is acceptable. How many times have you smiled to hide your tiredness? How many times have you said, everything's fine, when it clearly wasn't? Have you realized that that little bit extra you tolerate is the very thing preventing you from growing? When you normalize discomfort, the universe understands it can give you more of the same. It's like asking for prosperity with your lips and accepting scarcity with your actions. And that's why, until you change internally what you tolerate, nothing externally will change. Hill learned this early on. He observed that successful men weren't the smartest, but those who refused to accept the minimum as sufficient. They had an invisible line they wouldn't cross. What is unacceptable to me? When you define that line, something extraordinary happens. The world begins to respect you in the same measure that you respect yourself. Now stop and reflect. What have you been enduring that you should have ended already? The fear of risk, the voice that says it's too late, the habit of hiding behind routine. The life revolutionizing change isn't a grand act. It's the moment you, in silence, decide you will never betray yourself again, that you will never again pretend that everything is fine when you know it's not, that you will get up, even tired, and take the next step because you understand that every step is a vote for your new identity. This is the difference between those who survive and those who transform. Because the mind doesn't work in favor of those who dream. but of those who act as if they are already capable. Transformation doesn't begin with the world recognizing you. It begins with you stopping accepting the things that diminish you. It's the instant when you tell yourself, enough. That simple word has an almost divine power because it marks the beginning of your true internal revolution. And when you change what you accept, you change what you attract. When you change what you endure, you change what you build. And then you discover for the first time that life doesn't change because it got easier, but because you became more demanding of yourself. Andrew Carnegie looked me in the eyes and asked a question that would change the course of my life. He said, "Would you be willing to dedicate 20 years to studying the secret to success of the world's most prosperous men, receiving nothing in return, with no guarantees, no promises of recognition, only with the certainty that, in the end, you would discover something that could transform humanity?" That question sounded like an impossible challenge. I was young, ambitious, but also insecure. I had enormous dreams, but few resources. In a few seconds, my mind became stuck between fear and purpose. Carnegie gave me only 60 seconds to respond. 60 seconds that became the turning point of my story. I could have said no. I could have chosen the path of security, the comfort of the predictable, but within me there was something stronger than fear, the silent belief that the right opportunity never appears twice. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew that a life lived without purpose wasn't worth living. So I took a deep breath and said, yes. That simple yes wasn't just an answer. It was a declaration to the universe that I was willing to transform myself even before understanding how. And it was this small internal shift, this almost irrational decision to act despite fear, that started everything. The years that followed were not easy. I spent days on cold trains, nights in cheap rooms, eating the bare minimum to survive while writing and interviewing people who would change the world. Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Alexander Graham Bell, Theodore Roosevelt. Some welcomed me with respect, others with disdain. Many laughed at my proposal, but each conversation revealed a hidden pattern, a common trait among all successful men. None of them waited to feel ready. All acted with faith before evidence. And that's what I learned from that choice. Success begins long before the result. It begins when you commit to something that seems bigger than you. How many times have you refused something for fear of not being prepared? How many opportunities have failed to flourish because you waited for courage to appear? Courage doesn't come before the decision. It comes after. It is the decision that creates courage, not the other way around. When I said yes to Carnegie, I didn't know how I would do it, but I knew I would learn, and that is the secret that separates those who achieve from those who merely wish, acting without guarantees. Today, science confirms what was merely intuition back then. Researchers at Columbia University discovered that when we make a bold and immediate decision, the brain activates regions associated with confidence and reward, creating a chemical response of emotional alignment with the new purpose. In other words, deciding quickly and with faith reorganizes the brain for success. This is what happened to me that day. Those 60 seconds ignited a spark that guided the next 2 decades of my life. But the most surprising thing is that this choice didn't just change my destiny, it changed that of millions of people who came after, because it was from that journey that the law of success was born, and years later, Think and Grow Rich. 2 books that transformed the mindset of entire generations. And all of this began with a simple act of faith, a yes uttered amidst uncertainty. I didn't know if I would be successful, but I learned something I never forgot. Hesitation costs more than failure. Failure teaches, but hesitation paralyzes. Think of how many opportunities life has already placed before you. How many times you felt the impulse to try something new, start a business, move to a new city, begin a relationship, step outside the routine, and pulled back because you didn't feel ready. The problem is that the perfect moment never arrives. The human mind is programmed to seek security, not growth, and security is the opposite of transformation. It was this internal change, trading the comfort of security for the uncertainty of purpose, that taught me fear is a signal, not a limit. Fear points precisely to the place where your growth is hidden. What I did that day before Carnegie was just a choice. But the power of choices is that they create new roots within us. When you choose to move, even without guarantees, your mind reorganizes itself around the action. Every step taken with faith awakens a new strength. This is what I realized after interviewing thousands of people. None of them knew what they were doing at first. None were certain. They just started. And the act of starting revealed the path. Life never provides instructions before the decision. You only discover how to climb the mountain after taking the first step. The world is full of talented people who never achieved anything great because they waited to feel confident. But confidence is a consequence, not a condition. This is why I accepted Carnegie's challenge, because I understood that doubt isn't the opposite of faith. It's its fuel. And when you say yes to something that scares you, the universe understands you are ready to be tested. People often believe that to transform their lives, they need to take a gigantic leap, change everything, start from scratch, reinvent the world around them. But the truth is that real transformation doesn't happen when you dream higher. It happens when you raise the standard of what's unacceptable in yourself. It's not the size of your dreams that defines your destiny. It's the magnitude of what you refuse to tolerate. You don't need to raise the ceiling of your life. You need to raise the floor you stand on, because that floor is your minimum limit, determining how far you can truly go. Most people live trapped in the illusion that they will change when they feel motivated. They say, when I have more time, I'll start. When I have the energy, I'll change. When I feel good, I'll try again. But motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes. The strength that sustains success isn't excitement, it's your personal standard. And this standard isn't revealed on your best days, but on your worst. What do you do when you don't feel like doing anything? What do you maintain when everything seems to go wrong? Because that's where true power resides, in the moment you act, even when you don't want to. Kobe Bryant understood this early on. While others slept, he woke up at 4 a.m. to train, not because he always felt inspired, but because he had decided that his minimum would be greater than most people's maximum. This decision changes everything. When you elevate your minimum standard, your bad day becomes more productive than most people's good day. And that creates an advantage no one can take away from you. Science has already proven the impact of this. Neuroscience research has shown that when you repeat an action even without wanting to, the brain strengthens the neural circuits for discipline and emotional control. It's known as the neural consistency effect. With each repetition, the effort decreases and the behavior becomes natural. In other words, what initially feels heavy, waking early, training, studying, meeting deadlines, eventually becomes part of your identity. You don't do it because you have to. You do it because it's who you are. And when an attitude transforms into identity, it no longer relies on willpower. Hill understood this by observing the men he interviewed for decades. None of them were driven solely by the emotion of success. They had a personal code, things they never failed to do, even on their worst days. Thomas Edison, for example, failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. But for him, each attempt was just part of the process. He didn't allow himself to stop because his standard wasn't try until it works. It was continue until you succeed. This kind of discipline transforms the impossible into the inevitable. Now think about your own routine. What are your bad days like? When everything falls apart? Do you fall with it or do you stand firm? When exhaustion sets in, do you still honor what you promised yourself? True growth begins when your worst day stops being an excuse, when you understand that giving up on yourself is the only real failure. It's not about never falling, it's about not getting comfortable staying on the ground. And here's the most important point. Your minimum level is a reflection of your self-perception. It shows how much you believe you deserve. People who see themselves as small create small standards. People who believe they are worthy of something greater refuse to accept less. Therefore, the secret isn't trying to be perfect. It's choosing a non-negotiable minimum and defending it every single day. It could be something simple, making your bed, reading one page, walking for 15 minutes, writing your goals. These small actions, when maintained even on difficult days, reprogram your mind for success. Studies from Harvard University on sustainable habits show that small victories, repeated with consistency, create a positive spiral of self-confidence. Each time you fulfill something you promised yourself, the brain releases dopamine, the reward neurotransmitter. This creates an emotional link between discipline and pleasure. That's how effort stops being a burden and becomes enjoyable. You literally start to feel satisfaction in being disciplined. I've witnessed this myself in thousands of people who studied my teachings. None of them took an immediate leap to success. All began with a simple commitment to change one small attitude and never break that promise again. A woman I met in New York told me her life changed when she decided never again to start her day by checking her phone before meditating for 5 minutes. It seemed insignificant, but in 6 months, she had become more productive, calmer, and more confident because that small decision raised the standard of what she considered acceptable in her routine. You can do the same. Choose your sacred minimum. A daily act that symbolizes your commitment to your best self, and never break it no matter what happens. Because it's this consistency sustained on bad days that shapes extraordinary days. Success isn't born from what you do occasionally. It's born from what you refuse to stop doing. It's not about having more strength, it's about having more clarity. The clarity of knowing that the difference between a winner and an ordinary person isn't in the amount of talent, but in the number of times the winner decides not to give up. When you raise the floor, the ceiling automatically rises. Because the universe always responds to the standard you set for yourself. From the moment you define your minimum limit and act accordingly, the world stops testing you and starts respecting you. And that's not magic. It's coherence. The coherence between what you say you want and what you actually do. When your behavior begins to reflect your dreams, success stops being a possibility and becomes an inevitable consequence. Everything around you is shaping your mind, even when you think nothing is happening. The chair you sit in, the room where you sleep, the desk where you work, even the things you leave scattered, everything speaks to your subconscious. And the most intriguing part is that often, what we call lack of focus or laziness is merely a reflection of an environment not designed for your best self. The external world and the internal world are connected by invisible threads, and every detail of your physical space is reinforcing who you are or who you are trying to stop being. Napoleon Hill understood this very early on. When he began writing Think and Grow Rich, he created a non-negotiable ritual. His workspace had to reflect the mental state he aimed to achieve. His desk was always clean, his notes meticulously organized, and his office was a silent, almost sacred space. He believed that a chaotic environment would be like a noisy mind, incapable of hearing its own intuition. And it was in this intentional silence that the most transformative ideas of his life were born. He often said that an organized thought creates an organized destiny. Now think about the place where you live. What does it say about you? The way you organize your space reveals the level of order within your mind. An unmade bed is the first sign of a mind that hasn't yet awakened to the day's responsibility. A desk full of papers is a portrait of the mental confusion that prevents clarity in decisions. The environment isn't just a setting, it's a mirror of what you accept yourself to be. And more than that, it's an invisible system of identity reinforcement. If the place where you live and work communicates disorganization, it's only a matter of time until your behavior aligns with that pattern. The opposite is also true. An organized, clean, and inspiring space isn't just aesthetically pleasing, it's strategic. The human brain responds to its environment based on emotional associations. When you create a place that conveys purpose and serenity, you're programming your mind to operate in a state of focus and power. It's no coincidence that great visionaries like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, and Marie Kondo are obsessed with minimalist environments. Jobs, for example, maintained an almost empty office, not for aesthetics, but for philosophy. He believed that eliminating external excess also eliminated internal noise. And this is where a small physical change can transform into a mental revolution. Choose one area of your life and make it a reflection of your new self. It could be your workstation, your bedroom, or even your phone's home screen. Remove what no longer represents you. Every out-of-place object is a silent reminder of an old pattern. Every unnecessary item is a piece of your energy trapped in the past. Cleaning your environment is, in reality, freeing your mind. And when your physical space begins to mirror your purpose, something incredible happens. Your behavior changes effortlessly, almost automatically. Environmental psychologists have discovered that small visual interventions, like an inspirational quote on the wall, a plant, proper lighting, increase motivation and a sense of control over one's life. This happens because the environment stops being just a backdrop and becomes a constant reminder of your new internal standard. Imagine waking up and seeing a phrase representing your purpose in front of your bed, smelling a clean and quiet environment, opening your computer and seeing only what truly matters. All of this communicates to your mind, "This is the space for my best self." And if you think this is merely aesthetics, remember that every habit needs triggers, and your environment is the most powerful trigger that exists. When you surround yourself with stimuli that reinforce focus, clarity, and discipline, your brain understands that behavior as the new normal. That's how a simple, organized space begins to transform your identity. Hill always said that man is a product of the environment he chooses. And that choice is a daily one. If you want to prosper, you need to start by creating an environment that lifts you up, not one that drags you back to old patterns. Make this a commitment. Today, choose 3 places you will transform. It could be your bedroom, your desk, or even your cell phone. And for 7 days, keep these spaces as a sanctuary for your new self. Observe what changes. You'll notice your energy levels rise, your decisions become more steadfast, and even opportunities begin to emerge with greater frequency. Because your environment doesn't just reflect who you are, it also anticipates who you are becoming. When your space begins to vibrate at the frequency of your new identity, the universe responds. Everything starts to align naturally. Not because the world has changed, but because you've transformed your surroundings to remind you, with every glance, of the person you've decided to be. And when this happens, success ceases to be a pursuit and becomes the natural state of those living in harmony of mind, body, and environment. The revolution you seek doesn't begin externally. It starts from within. It's the decision to stop settling for the bare minimum, to raise your standards and to align your surroundings, your habits, and your thoughts with the life you aspire to live. When you grasp this, you realize that the power has always been in your hands. A small internal shift is capable of completely reshaping your destiny. So, before you move forward, look around and within yourself. See what you can change today, an attitude, a habit, a thought, because true transformation resides in that small gesture. Now continue your journey. The next video appearing on your screen will help you ascend another step in your journey of wisdom, so that tomorrow you are 1% better than you are today. Thank you for being here with me. I'll see you in the next video.